He was the kind of person the playful person, where to the point where sometimes it get on your nerves.
Chris Pitts reminisces about his friend and fraternity brother, Stephen Agee II. Stephen was an NIU student and president of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. He lost his life in November of 2011 when someone at a party here at 809 Edgebrook Drive decided to end their conversation with a bullet. It was just before Thanksgiving.
I saw my baby laying on a slab, and had a little blood in his nose and a little in his ear, but he was clean.
Police called Agee's case an isolated incident, but 809 Edgebrook Drive is not an address DeKalb police are unfamiliar with. Imagine this street filled with people, somewhere between 200 and 300 of them. For 2 nights in a row in 2012, that's what this street looked like. Cars and emergency vehicles couldn't get through. Police were being ignored when they told people to disperse. On the second night, police finally gathered enough resources to start arresting people. On the night after that, another mob like that formed, this time a few blocks away. This got us wondering, where were some of the other trouble spots in DeKalb? To find out, we looked at a year's worth of police reports, over 40,000 calls for service. The types of calls we looked at ranged from domestic abuse, theft, and battery to noise complaints and keeping a disorderly house. We disregarded calls to retail and business addresses, and we ruled out things like traffic stops and basic services. We only wanted to see which residential properties had the most of those specific types of calls. Here's what we found. Over 40% of residential calls for service went to this area, smaller than a square mile and neatly framed off by NIU. 60% of those calls went to this area, commonly known as Greek Row. This is 919 Ridge Drive. It's the address that has the most calls for service in the city of DeKalb. This one address represents all of the buildings in the West Ridge apartment complex, about a dozen buildings totaling 156 apartments. But that wasn't the only address in the area with a high number of calls. Just down the street, 833 Ridge had over 80 calls in 2013. Police say that Ridge Drive sees so much activity because it's populated by a lot of people from very different backgrounds, and that can cause tension.
Because there's such a blend of different people, I think sometimes it just creates the opportunity for conflict.
The police calls we found were rarely to the Greek houses themselves, but we didn't have to look far. 919 Ridge is across the street from one sorority and one fraternity. A large number of the calls to these buildings are for noise and loud party complaints. For 919 Ridge, it makes up about half of those 151 calls.
I don't know as far as like anything else why a lot of police activity would be going on around there. Like personally, I don't see that type of thing.
A lot of noise and party complaints might seem easy to dismiss. DeKalb is a college town after all. But it was during a party that got out of hand that Chris Pitts lost his friend, and Stephen Agee's plans were cut short.
I know he was kind of going into the whole HR kind of thing. That's what he really wanted to go into.
But that isn't the end of the story at 809 Edgebrook Drive. DeKalb police have been touting it as one of their biggest successes. They say they came here over 130 times in 2012, but after working with the landlords in 2013, that number was just under 60, essentially cut in half. Next time, we'll show you how they did it. For NTC News in DeKalb, Alan Kozalou.